Okay, I'll try a restart on that. Redo. We had a little. And the technology. This is interesting. We're going through both Zoom and through YouTube. So there's a few extra technology things that we're doing, and it's working pretty well. Just have a few things we're figuring out as we get this tech going. What I was saying before, those of you who logged in yesterday, and there've been some question about this, I'm doing the same basic message every day this week. It's an R Factor overview. It's equivalent to an R Factor keynote. A little bit of a difference each day. I mean, after yesterday's webinar, I went back and reflected on some things and made a few adjustments to slides. I may do that again tonight, but it's the same fundamental R Factor message. And I think there's a lot of reasons to log on and go through this more than once. I mean, it's a message that we all need, and particularly in the times that we're experiencing. But we want to make sure that those who want to get access to the fundamental core R Factor message, that they get access to it. That's our intent. During this time where this coronavirus pandemic is threatening globally, obviously as well nationally, we want to make sure that we get this core message out to as many people as possible, and that this toolbox, then the basics of this are available to you, and that you can use it as you navigate through the challenges that we are all experiencing with regard to COVID-19. Let me start with this. Here's the goal of the R Factor. The goal is to equip you with the mindset and skill set to pursue the best version of you. That's our goal. It's always our goal. In every workshop, every training, these webinars, the virtual training, the online course that we're going to be releasing here in a month or so, that's our goal, is equip you with mindset. That's to say a way of thinking, which we're going to talk a lot about today. And then the skill set, the specific disciplines that equip you to pursue best version of you. And I'm a huge believer in this pursuit of best version of you. And the pursuit is pretty straightforward. And it's this: be better today than you were yesterday, and be better tomorrow than you were today. If you ever heard me speak, you've heard me say that many times. Best version of you. And that process, that growth process is, and I use 3 words to describe it: slow, small, daily. It doesn't happen fast. It doesn't happen in big leaps, and it requires everyday work. It doesn't happen right now. And so that's the goal that we have in R Factor, and that's what we're going to be doing in this webinar today, is introducing you to that. Now, here's a reality, the first reality I want you to think about, and that is that things change. Things always change. That's simply the way the world works. We live in we don't live in a static world, we live in a dynamic world. And things can change slowly and things can change quickly. And even before we were hit with this pandemic of COVID-19, change is speeding up. Change is becoming more complex. Change is becoming more disruptive. That's just the nature of the world in which we live and work, and we need to be prepared for that. And so reality number 2 is that resenting or resisting change only puts you at a disadvantage. And your capacity to respond effectively to change, your ability to be flexible and adaptable, is a critical competency for success every place in life today. Your ability to navigate through change quickly and effectively with a great attitude is a superpower, and it's one that I want to help you with today. However, there's a temptation, and here's the temptation: that's to get stuck in routines that are comfortable but not particularly effective, to get stuck in a rut, to be stuck in a comfort zone that something you've been doing for a while, or even for a long time, but it doesn't work anymore. Maybe it never was particularly effective, or maybe it was effective years ago, but things changed, and what worked yesterday doesn't work today, and for sure will not work tomorrow. That's a temptation. The comfort zone's attractive, but folks, it's not safe in the comfort zone. The comfort zone isn't your friend. There is no real safety in that comfort zone. So here's the challenge that they're all face. Let go of old ways of doing things and embrace new ways that are uncertain, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable. That's the challenge that we all face. Let go of the comfortable things that don't work anymore. Listen, I'm going to say this in a very straightforward way. What doesn't work, doesn't work. And how, listen to, this is a very important principle. Your level of comfort for something isn't the reference point for whether you should do it or not. The comfort zone can be deceptively seductive. So let go of the old ways of doing things and embrace a new way that's more effective. Now, here's the insight that I want to share with you. Resistance to change is emotional, not rational. I mean, I have to navigate change just like you do. I'm faced with this CV-19 pandemic just like you are. This pathogen is disruptive personally, and it's disruptive from a market business perspective for all of us. And so resilience and flexibility are critically important. But most people, when they deal with change, they have an emotional reaction, not a thoughtful reaction. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But keep in mind, change is only as stressful as you make it. And here's a theme today. And not only a theme, but something I would encourage you to remember and make a part of your mindset, the rest of your life forward. And that's this: don't equate discomfort with stress. Just because something's uncomfortable doesn't mean it needs to be stressful. Now, change is uncomfortable. I get that. But folks, it doesn't have to be stressful. And whether it's stressful or not, that's a you issue. And I get it. Again, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to this coronavirus and other changes. And also, and I'll say this right now, once we navigate through the coronavirus challenge, and we will, once we flatten the curve, get ahead of this thing, get back to some form of business as usual, it's not going to be business as usual. The changes that are going to happen as a result of the coronavirus, we haven't even seen yet. There's more coming. I don't know what they are. I don't know. I just know that things have changed. And it's like 9/11. There was a change in the way we go to the airport, the way we go through security and get on an airplane. And there's going to be changes going forward with regard to how we deal with these kinds of viruses, these kinds of pathogens. And we need to be prepared for them. That's the key. When you look at any organization, and now I'm going to put it in the context of where you work, that there are 3 levels of culture in every organization. There's the organization, the enterprise itself. There's the team that you're on, business unit, department, if you will, and then your 20 square feet. And the 20 square feet is a metaphor for your sphere of ownership of what you believe and how you behave. 20 square feet is a metaphor for the fact, the reality that you own. You are responsible for 20 square feet of the performance and culture of the organization where you work. And it goes beyond that. I mean, you've got 20 square feet of your family life. You've got 20 square feet of the community where you live. You've got 20 square feet of response to the coronavirus. Because inside your 20 square feet, you have control, and outside your 20 square feet, you have influence and impact. Let that sink in. And 20 square feet is a metaphor. It's not an actual space. It's not literally 20 feet. 20 is an arbitrary number. When I teach this in Europe, it's not even feet, it's metric. So it's a metaphor for your sphere of ownership. You are the only person who decides what to believe and how to behave inside your 20 square feet. You're the only person who decides what to do or not do inside your 20 square feet. And whatever you choose to do or not do has an impact on the people around you, has an impact on the team that you're in, has an impact on the business unit of the company where you work, has an impact on customers or clients that you serve, has an impact on the community around you. You own your 20 square feet, whether you know it or not. So what I'm asking you to do today, and what I ask everybody to do in the workshops that we do, own your 20 square feet. Take ownership. Take ownership of what you believe. Take ownership of how you think. Take ownership of your mindset. Take ownership of how you choose to act in your 20 square feet. Because here's this: you are a creator of culture. You are a creator of culture. Everyone creates culture. Culture is not created by the people in the executive suite alone. Yes, they have an impact on culture. Yes, they're a significant weight in creating culture. But you also are a creator of culture. When it comes to culture, everyone matters. And we all have 20 square feet of the culture. So that's something very important to remember going forward. And this, R Factor, is a toolbox to equip you to take ownership of your 20 square feet of the performance of the organization where you work. And again, I'll go further and say this. My wife just brought me some tea. Thank you, babe. Just a sip of herbal tea here. This is special tea, by the way. you have, again, you have 20 square feet of the community where you live. And that's really important to consider. We do a lot of work in education, and I want to share this, and that is speaking to the educators today. I know that a good number of you logged on yesterday. I'm assuming there's a lot of educators here today. And I had some students yesterday. We had one fantastic tweet yesterday. A dad, who I think he's a coach and a teacher in a school, had his son watch the E+R = O webinar yesterday. And apparently his son took notes, and then he had his son read back to him, to the dad, the things he learned in yesterday's webinar. Phenomenal decision by that dad. I was so impressed with that. That was amazing. But your school has a culture, your classroom has a culture, and you have 20 square feet of the culture of your classroom and of your school. And the thing about the 20 square feet diagram that I want to emphasize, then move on, is that culture really gets built 20 square feet at a time. It really is built by what people choose to do inside or choose not to do inside their 20 square feet. Now, in your 20 square feet, you're going to behave one of two ways: discipline or default. There's a line in life, and every day you're either above it with discipline or you're below it with default. And discipline, as you can see on the screen, is behavior that's intentional, on purpose, and skillful. Default, unfortunately, is behavior that's impulsive, on autopilot, and resistant. And I probably don't need to tell you that best version of you is discipline driven, not default driven. An insight here: the word discipline doesn't mean punishment. The word discipline is a Latin word that means learning. Discipline behavior is learned. We're not born with discipline. We're born with talent, but we're not born with discipline. Talent's a gift. Discipline is a choice. And you can be talented and undisciplined. And we've all met people. In fact, all of us have talents we don't fully take advantage of. We have talents we don't fully tap into. Why? Because we lack the discipline to be intentional, purposeful, and skillful in the cultivation and use of that talent. So discipline means learning. It's Latin for learning. A great way to think about it is this: discipline is the decision you make to be better every day because you consistently apply principles and standards to your life. Let me say it again. Discipline is a decision that you make to be better every day by, again, you making the decision to apply standards and principles to your life. Discipline is not something someone does to you. It's something you choose to do for yourself. Discipline is not something that's imposed on you from the outside. It's something it is chosen by you on the inside. And all that default is the absence of discipline. That's what it is. Impulse is undisciplined emotion. Autopilot is undisciplined habit. And resistance is being stuck and refusing to get better. And so just keep in mind that you're making decisions every day, whether to operate by discipline or operate by default. So when change happens, like we're experiencing right now with this coronavirus, you can respond with discipline or you can react on default. Your choice. You don't get to determine if change happens. You do get to determine how you respond to it, which I'll talk about in a minute. But think about this for a second. Think about if you react to any significant change, particularly disruptive change, with impulse, autopilot, and resistance, you're not gonna navigate it very well. But if you choose to respond to the change with intention, purpose, and skill, that's going to be the most effective way to go about life. Now, the ultimate default reaction is something we call BCD. And as you can see from the screen, don't BCD. It's a no-no. And BCD stands for blame, complain, defend. And a lot of people, when things don't go the way they want, they blame other people, they complain about things, they defend themselves. They defend their ego. Sadly, we're seeing a fair amount of BCD right now in reaction to this coronavirus pathogen. People blaming, people complaining, people defending. We don't need that. That's not helpful. BCD does not work. It doesn't improve relationships. It doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't achieve any goals. In fact, BCD it's a waste of time. And number two, it only makes things worse. Three, it's social. people don't BCD by themselves. They love to share it with other people. I call that the fellowship of discontent. And I just, may I encourage you, implore you, admonish you, eradicate BCD from your life. Redirect your BCD from blaming, complaining, defending into resolution or resilience. So the opposite of BCD isn't silence. The opposite of BCD, the good thing to do, is resolution or resilience. Resolution is go solve the problem. Resilience is go navigate through it with a great attitude. And so when a problem pops up, go ahead and talk about it. Talking about the problem is not BCD. Complaining about it is BCD. Blaming other people is BCD. Defending yourself is BCD. When a problem pops up, by all means, put it on the table, talk about it, address it. Talk about it with clarity. Talk about it with courage. Talk about it with innovation. Go find a solution. And if it's a big problem, it's probably going to be a hard to find solution. I don't know the answer to all the coronavirus things. I don't know. I don't. But I know this. I'm going to seek solutions for myself and for my company and my family. And resolution is resilience is the second thing. Sometimes you can't solve certain things. So be resilient. Navigate through it with a great perspective and a great attitude. Bottom line, get rid of any lingering attachment to the entitled mindset that you shouldn't have to deal with things that are frustrating or inconvenient, because you do have to deal with that stuff. Stop complaining, stop blaming, start responding with clarity and courage. No one is exempt, okay? That's very important to understand. Here then is the system that we like to use. This is the way we want people to think about their life, their work, their family, what they do, and it's E+R = O. Many of you on this webcast have heard this before, and this is reinforcement. For some, it's new, but this is a lens. This is a system by which to look at the world. Reality is this: life comes at us fast. Situations pop up. There's people, responsibilities, lots of challenges, lots of change. We're constantly having to deal with the stuff of life. And that then presents this decision we have to make. How do we navigate through? How do we respond to life in a way that produces the best possible outcomes? Well, the answer lies in adopting this system. And ERO is great because it teaches us that producing outcomes is not the result of events that we experience. Rather, producing outcomes is based on how we choose to respond. Now, let that sink in for a second. Outcomes don't come from events. Outcomes come from our response. Success isn't about the E. Success is about the R. And it applies to every single part of your life. You are constantly making R-factor decisions. You make the decision whether to pursue or not pursue your goals. You make the decision how to solve the problems that you face. You make the decisions to how to respond to people at work and people at home. You make the decision how to respond to the coronavirus challenges that we're all facing. That's your choice. You decide what you do and what you don't do. And the outcomes that you get are produced by how you choose to respond. Here's another way to think about E+R = O. The O is stuff you want. The R is the work you have to do to get the stuff that you want. And the E are the situations that you have to navigate along the way. Say it again. The O is what you want. The R is the work you have to do to get what you want. And the E are the circumstances and situations you have to navigate in your journey. And you are, think about this. You are where you are today because of the R-factor decisions you have made in the past. That's simple and profound. You are where you are today. Things happen. Circumstances arose, situations occurred, experiences happened, and you chose how to respond. And it's those responses that got you to where you are today. And you will end up tomorrow based on where your R-factor decisions take you. And that's why we teach this system, so we can all have a system, if you will, to look at life and focus where our control and where our power resides, which is in response. Folks, you're not your circumstances, you are your choices. You're not defined by the E, you're defined by how you choose to respond, which is why we call it the R factor. Here then is the R factor mindset. And wow, we learned this. R factor is a mindset first and a skill set second. And I want you to keep the mindset top of mind. Think about the mindset as I go through the R factor disciplines or skill set, which I'll share in a minute. But I put these in first person because I encourage you to adopt this way of thinking about life in general, at home, at work, and every place else. First person, here's the R factor mindset. Number one, I do not control events. Events happen. I influence them, they influence me, but I don't control them. And I'm going to stop trying to control them. And that's number one. I know there's some people listening to this right now who are probably would qualify as a control freak. People who just try really hard to control people and situations around them. My strong admonition to you is stop doing that. It doesn't work. So again, events happen. I get it. And events influence me. I get that. But they don't control me and I don't control them. Number two, my response is my choice. My power resides in my ability and my choice to respond. Again, circumstances will happen and they're going to have an impact, but I am the one who chooses how I respond. And don't make the mistake of equating having to make a difficult choice with not having a choice. You always have a choice, always. And this is all about maximizing that one thing that you control, which is your response. Number three, I earn outcomes by the quality of my response. I earn outcomes. Outcomes aren't given to me, I earn them. Let me make it really, really simple. The O that I get is determined by the R that I choose. If I want a better outcome, I have to choose a better response. It's just how it works. I'll go back for a second and just looking at E+R O. What's really instructional about this system is no matter what part of your life, the O is feedback about how well your R is working. The O is feedback about how well your R is working. If you don't like the O that you're getting, change your R. Don't blame the E, change the R. So many people BCD about the E when what they ought to be doing is improving their response. That's just fundamental to this system. So I earn outcomes by the quality of my response. If I'm not getting the outcome that I want, the system is telling me I got to improve the way I respond. And then fourthly and finally, E+R O is the way life works, and my job is to get good at it. Again, it's just how life works. People around me may or may not practice or understand E+R O, but I will. And I understand that the best responses are the most important outcomes oftentimes take a lot of responses over time. Navigating this coronavirus is going to require a consistent, discipline-driven response by a lot of people to get us through this. And we're going to do it, but hopefully this is going to be very helpful. As we move into the toolbox then, show you the skill set, I want you to grasp this message, this important statement you see on the screen. Your mind either puts up barriers that hold you back, or your mind builds bridges that move you forward. Mindset matters. And your mindset is either a bridge builder or a barrier builder. And I want to challenge you, my heart to yours today. What are you doing right now in your life? What is your mind doing? Bridges or barriers? And I want to give you a toolbox. I want to give you a mindset. I want to give you a system that's a bridge to the future, not a barrier to hold us back. Folks, we don't need any more barriers in our society. You don't need them in your life. You don't need them in your family. You don't need them in your school. You don't need them in your business, on your team. You don't need barriers. You need bridges. So start building yours. That's the message today. Here's how you do it. Here's the bridge to the next level. Here's the bridge to the best version of you. Here's the R factor skill set. These are the disciplines for managing your R with discipline, with intention, purpose, and skill. Number one is press pause. The purpose of pause is clarity, exceptional clarity. I'm going to go into pause a little bit today and talk about that. But that's the number one R factor gateway skill, gateway discipline. Press pause and gain clarity. Number two is get your mind right. And by that, we mean produce the energy that you need, the emotional energy and mental energy that you need to execute what you identified in press pause. So in press pause, you clarify the situation and what you need to do, and get your mind right. You create your own emotional energy to execute the action that you identified in press pause. Number three is step up, and that's taking disciplined action. Go take disciplined action. Clarify it, number one, energize it, number two, and go do it in number three. That's what this is. See it, develop the emotional energy, and then go take action. And then number four, is all about adjusting and adapting. As you step up and take action, monitor the outcome that you're getting. And if you're not getting the outcome that you want, adjust and adapt. Or if the E changes, adjust and adapt. Be flexible. So pause for clarity, get your mind right for energy, step up for action, adjust and adapt for flexibility. Now let me just stop for a second. Just stop for a moment. Think about, and I said this yesterday, I'll say it again tomorrow. What's the value to you in your life, personally and professionally, if you are clear, positive and productive energy, have disciplined action over time, and you're flexible? Is that not best version of you? Is that not the best? Is that not the bridge forward? And let's consider the opposite. What if we don't do this kind of a thing? What if we're putting up barriers rather than bridges? What if we don't press pause and we're confused? What if we don't get our mind right and we've got negative energy? What if we don't step up and we don't take action? We procrastinate, or worse, we take negative action. And what if we're rigid and we don't flex? So you see the difference? Discipline, default. Above the line, below the line. R that works and R that doesn't. And that's really what this is about. And the number 5 is make a difference. There's a shift here with number 5. And the shift is that 1, 2, 3, and 4 focus on you managing yourself. And what the 5th one focuses on is how your behavior affects the people around you. Let me put it this way. Make a difference is about impact. Pause is clarity, mind rights, energy, step up is action, adjust and adapt is flexibility. Number 5 is impact. Your R is an E for others. How you manage the R produces an event, a situation, an experience that other people have to deal with. And you can be disciplined or default in the experience you deliver to other people. So we are strongly recommending that you manage your R in a way to give other people a great experience. And there's 3 ways you give an experience to people: attitude, action, and words. Attitude, your attitude is felt by people. Your action is seen by people. Your words are heard by people. And you are at your best, and you're a peak contributor in whatever domain you're in, family, business, school, team, whatever you're in. You're a peak contributor when you have a discipline-driven attitude, you have discipline-driven action, and discipline-driven words, and you're making a positive difference. Of course, if that's default, it's a negative difference. And then finally, build skills, number 6, and that's all about growth. That's all about get better. I said it earlier, be better today than you were yesterday, be better tomorrow than you were today. That's what that one's all about. And here's the question for number 6, and it's the capstone, because 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, they're all skills. There's no magic to R factor, 0 magic. It's mechanics, it's work. You have to do the work. And if you have a get better mindset and you're committed to doing the work and you're coachable, you're going to be growing every day. You'll be better today than you were yesterday. You'll be better tomorrow than you were today. And that's the journey. That's the R factor toolbox. And that's how you manage the R with discipline, intention, purpose, and skill. All right, let's jump into the first one, which is press pause. And again, let me see my time frame here. Yeah, we're about half an hour in. So in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to go through press pause and get your mind right. Give you a snapshot of those two and give you a sense of how they work, okay? So as I mentioned, the purpose of pause is clarity. And that's because we know this about human performance, about human decision-making, human action. That is, clarity of vision drives quality of response. The way you respond to a situation is predominantly determined by how you see it. Perception drives action. The way you see a situation, how you frame it, we call it framing, is going to greatly determine how you respond to any given situation that you're in. And so when you press pause, here's what you do to gain clarity. Here are the mechanics of clarity using E+R = O. Ask yourself 3, well, 1, use the system. So it is important that when you press pause, you do something specific. And E+R O is great because there isn't a situation in your life or mine to which E+R O does not apply. There is no situation in your life or mine to which E+R = O does not apply. And in every situation you're in, there's three things you've got to be clear about: the E you have, the O you want, and the R that you need. And I'll put it up on the screen in a minute, but I just want to articulate it before I visualize it with the text here. In every situation you're in, driving your car, being in an airport, being at work, being at home, this situation we're in right now across the country, there are three things you've got to be clear about: the E that you have, the O that you want, and the R that you need. And press pause is the discipline mechanics of doing that by using this system and asking these three questions. Number one, what event do I have? See it with clarity and courage. If you're taking notes, please write down right now, see the event with clarity and courage. And that second word is important. I don't think reality is that hard to see. I think reality is hard to accept for some people. It's there to be seen. The question is, do you have the courage to acknowledge it? Now let that sink in. See the events of life with clarity and courage. You have, a lot of times, folks, we have to remove the filters that screen out realities we don't want to see. I think one of the greatest questions you can ask yourself is this: what do I not see that I need to see? That's a phenomenal question. Am I seeing the event clearly? Am I ignoring realities there because they're uncomfortable? No, so that's question number one in pressing pause and gaining clarity. Question number two is, what outcome do I want? What outcome am I responsible for? What outcome do I want to produce? What outcome does the team need from me? What outcome is best in my life? And it's amazing how many people are going about life without any clear goal or outcome in mind. They're just on autopilot, and they're not clear about the O that they're pursuing. So those two are the bookends of pressing pause. And notice, I haven't chosen my R. And that's because here's the rule of press pause for clarity. You're not in a position to choose the R until you're clear about the E and the O. Remember, the purpose of press pause is clarity. And you're not in a position to choose the response until you're clear about the E that you have and the O that you want. Do the work to gain clarity about the E and the O. Then ask the question, what response do I need? And the mechanics of this are: create a list. What are the options available to you? And keep in mind, your first reaction is rarely your best response. That's why press pause is so important. Your first reaction is rarely your best response. So create a list. What are the options available to me? What, given the constraints and realities of the events, given the outcomes that I want, what responses are most likely to get me where I want to go? And keep in mind this: sometimes the best response is one that's uncomfortable and you're not good at it. That does not, by the way, mean that you shouldn't do it. Don't use discomfort. I mentioned earlier, don't use discomfort as a reference point for saying no. Again, sometimes the R that you need to engage in is one that's uncomfortable and you're not good at it yet. So the answer is go do it anyway, and then monitor the outcome and improve and get better at building your R factor capacity. So that's important to pressing pause. Now, this clarity thing is important because sometimes the way you see the problem is the problem. I've got a phrase that I use. I think a lot of people are incarcerated by obstacle illusions. And the illusion is not the existence of an obstacle. There's always going to be problems. Problems exist. Your life is full of problems. There's full of obstacles, full of impediments. Life has them. But how do you see the impediment? A lot of times the illusion is the false notion that that problem can't be solved or can't be navigated through, or that it's just impossible. No, it's just hard. So don't let your perception of a problem be the problem. And a lot of times you have to reframe and view it from a different perspective. Now, here's a great example of what I'm talking about. So the circle represents a situation that you're facing. And this box, this frame, is what you're giving your attention to. That's what you're focused on. I want you to notice something. Look at the screen carefully. The second box is what actually deserves your attention. I'm going to toggle this. You're in a situation. There's what gets your attention. There's what deserves your attention. Now, here's the point. Oftentimes, what gets our attention distracts us from what really matters. Here then is something to keep in mind. and I'm going to share this every single day this week. Again, write this down. Just because something gets your attention doesn't mean it deserves your attention. Just because something gets your attention doesn't mean it deserves your attention. And one of the most important skills you can have in life is the discipline to recognize, and when you're giving your attention to the wrong thing, untether from that thing and redirect your attention to stuff that matters. King Solomon said, this is actually in the book of Proverbs in chapter 4, he said, guard your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. Guard your heart with all discipline and diligence, meaning be careful what you allow into your heart. Be careful what you give your attention to, because life is lived from the heart. And what we need to do is recognize then when we're giving our attention to the wrong thing and untether from that thing and redirect to stuff that really matters, that really deserves our attention. Folks, right now, a lot of people are framing this COVID-19 thing in a fear frame instead of a faith frame. A lot of people are incarcerated by fear rather than seeing it with clarity and courage. And so there's solutions out there. There are things we need to do that are out there. And it's a difficult, challenging situation. Make sure that you give your attention only to those things that really deserve it, and don't get distracted by attractive, seductive things that don't deserve your attention. Classic example. Here you go. Here's the real world. So here's an event. You're on the highway being tailgated by an aggressive driver. Okay. Well, you can frame it in a negative way. You can frame it in a clear, courageous way. Negative frame would be that person's trying to take up my space, and I have a combative, competitive, negative frame. Here you go. Look what happens. A default response driven by a negative frame. I get irritated. I pump my brakes. Maybe I gesticulate at the guy, make hand gestures at him or her, and I get angry and I pump my brakes and I'll show you. Outcome of that, I'm distracted, stress goes up, risk goes up. I chose that. That's my choice. Negative frame. I could have framed it differently, but I didn't. I had a competitive, combative, irritated frame, negative frame. Caused a default response, default outcome. No one wants that. Could have a positive frame. I could look at it in a way that deserves my attention, which is safety, calm, being concerned for myself and the people around me in a positive way. Don't assume negativity. So here's what I would do. I would press pause. I would look around me. I would gain clarity about my circumstances, signal, move over, let the person pass. Outcome of that is focused, calm, and safe. Now, it's interesting. The Department of Transportation has done research on the mindset and behavior of American drivers. The Department of Transportation has done studies on the mindset and behavior patterns of American drivers. And the vast majority of drivers in America react on default, what you see below the line on that screen, because they're competitive, self-centered, combative, and don't want to be inconvenienced. And when someone tailgates them, they get angry, they get irritated, they do foolish, stupid things. And I don't know if you know this or not, but we kill 40,000 people every year in the United States because of bad driving. That's 100 people a day. Every year. I'm telling you right now, COVID-19 will not kill that many people. But driving does. And it's default driving, driven by a mindset that was chosen. And we had alternatives. So I'm trying to be dramatic. Yeah, I am actually, because I want you to see this, that we've got to begin to look at life with clarity and courage and respond with discipline. That's what we're called to. So let's take the event of being confronted by unexpected disruptive change. Okay. What would a default reaction be? BCD, avoid the discomfort of dealing with the change and resist it. And other things there, obviously, too. Fear would be in there. Anxiety would be in there. What would the outcome be if we BCD'd and avoided the discomfort? Well, the change is difficult and more stressful. Again, and I want to point out that outcome is not produced by the event. That default outcome is produced by a default response. Here's a disciplined response to unexpected disruptive change. Embrace the discomfort, acknowledge it for being uncomfortable, and then do the work, and then adjust and adapt. Outcome I get if I respond that way is I build new skills, I gain a competitive advantage, and I build a bridge to the future. So those are choices. I don't get to choose the E, I do get to choose my R. And the O that I get is determined by the R that I choose. If I want a better O, choose a better R. Hope that makes sense. Number 2, checking my time here, okay. I'll check a text here, folks. Hold on a second, make sure that we're all on board here. Some people are communicating. Yeah, I'm going to be going right till about 1 o'clock today. We'll finish maybe slightly afterwards. We're going to shoot for the 1 hour time frame. All right, let's jump then into get your mind right. So number 1 is I press pause for clarity and courage to see the situation with clarity. Number 2, I got to get my mind right. And that's all about recognizing the kind of energy that I need to take the action that's required. So my mindset is a primary driver of what I do and how I do it. My response is internal and mental first and external and behavioral second. Think about that for a second. Your response is mental first. Before you ever do or say anything externally, you've processed it mentally inside first. Inner work drives outer work. Or to put a fine point on it, the quality of your inner work drives the quality of your outer work, which is just very important to understand. Where your mind goes, you go. Love that statement. Where your mind goes, you go, which is why you have to own your mindset, why you have to take ownership of that, get your mind right, as it were. And this is the point. Create the mindset required for the action that you need. Different situations call for different mindsets. There are going to be lots of situations during any given day where you're going to have to shift from one mindset to another. One mindset doesn't work for all situations. And the mindset for listening is different than the mindset for doing daily work. And the mindset for daily work is different than the mindset for responding to adversity. And responding to adversity is different than the mindset you need for driving in heavy traffic, or there's a long line at TSA at the airport. Not right now, there isn't, but there will be again at some time soon. So create the mindset required for the action that you need. Now, here's how. Here's the mechanics of the way the mind functions. We call this the mindset cycle. And there are 4 steps to it. The first one we've actually talked about a lot. That is the first thing your brain does. First thing your mind does is it focuses. Now, remember, your focus is selective. You pay attention to some aspect of the situation. You don't see everything. You see something. So the first choice you have to make in the mindset cycle is, what do you focus on? What do you give your attention to? Do you focus on the negative or the positive? Do you focus on problems or solutions? Do you see things that defend you, or do you see things that expand you and challenge you? Do you see how to move forward, or do you see it in a way that holds you back? You choose your focus. Something gets your attention, and you better pay attention to what you pay attention to. That's number 1. Then the second thing the mind does, this is really interesting. The second thing the mind does is it talks to itself. It tells stories about how it sees the situation. So focused self-talk are the first 2 steps in the mindset cycle. And if you focus on negative things, you'll talk negative to yourself. Now, when I say self-talk, I literally mean your internal dialogue, your storytelling, your internal narrative, the scripts you're running inside of yourself. And if you see it negative, you'll say it negative. You'll tell yourself negative stories. Why, that guy's tailgating me, he's a moron. Well, that's focus and self-talk. Well, if I say that, then the third thing that happens is my feelings. My focus and my self-talk feed my emotional state. Listen carefully to this. My focus and my self-talk feed my emotional state. What you focus on and how you talk to yourself, the stories you tell yourself, produce and feed your emotions. And those feelings aren't just psychological, they're physiological. It's not just psychological, there's a physiological signature, hormones, neurotransmitters, brain chemistry, all kinds of stuff in the body. It's not just psychological, it's physical. Focus, self-talk, feeling. And then emotion, feeling, drives action. And by the way, feeling's energy. That's what that is. It's energy. It's emotional and physical energy. And it can be positive, it can be neutral, and it can be negative. And notice what this cycle is showing you. Your focus and your self-talk create your energy, which shapes what you do, which reinforces the cycle. Here's the message today, everybody. Don't be the author of negative stories that create negative energy. The only way that a negative emotion can continue to exist in your life is if you feed it negative stories. I'm going to repeat that. The only way a negative emotion can continue to exist in your life is if you feed it negative stories and self-talk. Your self-talk is going to be discipline or default. One of two voices are going to speak inside your head, speak inside your heart. An above the line discipline voice or a below the line default voice. The default voice, that's the BCD voice. It's not your friend. It doesn't help you. It's negative. It doesn't look for solutions. It looks for complaining. It's the disciplined voice that looks for solutions. It's a disciplined voice that is empathetic towards others and respectful towards other people. It's the disciplined voice that's courageous and focuses on solutions. The default voice recognizes scary stuff, but says, let's go tackle that. Let's go deal with it. The default voice fixates on the fear and reinforces the fear. You see the difference? So what you focus on, how you talk to yourself, drives your feeling, your emotional state, which then energizes whatever action you take. One last insight here before I move on and give you a little exercise here. Emotion means evoke motion. An emotion is an impulse to act. That's what an emotion is. And what you can see on the screen is that we've got to be very careful about the emotions that we feed, because our emotions are going to energize action. And sometimes we should do what our emotion tells us to do, and sometimes not. Just because you feel it doesn't mean you should do it. How you feel is not a great reference point for what you should do. And just keep that in mind as you manage the mindset cycle. Bottom line, the emotions you feed will grow. The emotions you feed will grow. And you choose what emotions you feed through your attention and your self-talk. Maybe the most important takeaway from this webinar. You feed emotions in your life by what you focus on and what you talk about, how you talk to yourself, the stories that you tell. And I like to think of it this way: be really careful what you say to other people. Be even more careful what you say to yourself. And you better pay attention to which voice you're listening to. And that default voice, like I said a moment ago, is not your friend. It's quick, it's careless, and it's convincing. The voice of fear is quick, careless, and convincing. Quick meaning it happens really fast. Careless means it's not interested in your success. All it wants to do is disrupt you and distort things. And then convincing, this is very persuasive. And may I say this, not just about the coronavirus, but about lots of things. We happen to live in a world today where there's an enormous amount of negative self-talk, negative narrative in the news, in the media, both the mainstream media and social media. Don't consume the negative stuff. Stay away from negative people. Stay away from your own, from the negative news, and stay away from your own negative self-talk. Stay away from negative people. Stay away from negative news, and stay away from your own negative self-talk. And manage your mindset cycle to produce the kind of energy that you need to navigate through this time and whatever follows with intention, purpose, and skill. I want to take then this situation of disruptive change, and I want to apply the mindset stuff we just talked about: focus, self-talk, feeling. Now notice on the screen, there's a default mindset below, and a discipline mindset above. The default mindset below has, both of them have the 4 steps: focus, self-talk, feeling, action. I've already filled in the action. So the negative, counterproductive default action is, in response to disruptive change, is BCD, avoiding productive discomfort, clinging to the old way of doing things, and resisting change. That's the unwanted but pretty common default reaction, action, if you will, to disruptive change. Above is the discipline response. What we want to do is gain clarity about what's going on, embrace the discomfort, embrace it. Don't have to like it, but embrace it. Do the work required, and then make the adjustments and adapt accordingly. That's what we want to do. Okay? Now, both of those are driven by a mindset. Let's look at the default mindset that drives and produces default action. And I'm going to go backwards, right to left. So the emotions that produce default action in response to disruptive change would be negative energy, resentment, anxiety, anger, fear, cynicism, stress, and low motivation. Now, that's not a productive emotional state, but it's one a lot of people allow themselves to get into. Well, why? Well, the second thing here then is self-talk. What's the self-talk that feeds those negative feelings? Would be things like this. This is ridiculous. What's going on? It won't work. What are they doing? They don't know what's going on. They don't know what they're doing. I can't do this. Nothing's going to work anymore. Life is over. Catastrophizing the thing, awfulizing the thing, negative self-talk. That's not productive. And then the focus that produces the negative self-talk is focus on the past, the way things used to be. The attempt to focus on and try to stay in the comfort zone. What you don't like about the change, fixated on the threat, and then things you cannot control. Now look how that plays out. If you focus on those things in that box, you say those things in the default self-talk box, you produce the default emotional box, which drives and energizes the default action. That's not productive. It will not work. And you can't allow yourself to get in there. So stop, press pause, get your mind right, and then step up and go into the discipline zone. So how would what emotional state do I want to be in to gain clarity, embrace discomfort, do the work, and adjust and adapt? Well, how about this? Look at these emotions. Positive energy, a sense of ownership. I'm motivated. I'm resilient. I feel purposeful. I'm optimistic, proactive. Those are emotions. What creates those emotions? Look at the self-talk here. Looking at the change, you go, man, this is difficult. It's scary, but it's necessary. You got to go through this. These are things we got to do right now to get through this situation. Change is uncomfortable, but it produces growth. There's benefit there. I can do this. How can I help other people? How can I help other people navigate through this? That self-talk produces and feeds lots of positive emotion. The focus that produces the disciplined self-talk would be focus on the future, focus on necessity and opportunity, that change is going to happen, and there are necessary things we have to do. In the midst of that, there are opportunities, not just problems, but opportunities. I focus on what I need to do, what needs to be done, and I only focus on things that I can control. So those are two different mindsets that you see on that screen. Two very different ways of navigating disruptive change. Discipline, default. And I want to point something out. Everything on this screen, every box is a choice that you make. If you're in the default blue below, you chose that. And you can choose the discipline above. You can choose that. That's your choice. That's why it's called mental toughness. That's why it's called get your mind right. You have to make the choice. That's why it's called discipline. It's a choice that you make. Now, just one last thought here. You can choose the above and then find yourself dropping back down. That happens all the time. I'm not always in the discipline mindset. But when I find myself drifting, I press pause and I stop the negative cycle and then redirect my attention back up again. And that's the key, is recognize, redirect, recognize, redirect, recognize, refocus, and do it as many times as you need to. You know, it's not going to be 3 or 4 times a day. It's going to be 50 times a day. When you find your mind drifting into the negative, stop, press pause, redirect, refocus back to things that make a difference. Okay. So again, I said it before, and this is great repetition. Your mind either puts up barriers that hold you back, or your mind builds bridges that move you forward. And my whole intent here, my entire motivation is to give you tools to build bridges that move you forward and to get rid of the barriers, the internal barriers, the self-imposed, self-inflicted wounds we put on ourselves, which is what this is all about. So that's E+R=O. That is how it functions, that's how it works. There is no situation in your life to which it does not apply. And I'm really grateful that you invested the time to be with us today on this webcast. Again, we're going to do it again tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. If you want to join us again, please do so. If you've got friends or family or colleagues that you think would benefit from this, please inform them, and they can log in again tomorrow. Here's how to get a hold of me and us. That's my Twitter feed at Timothy Kight, K-I-G-H-T. I'm also on LinkedIn. And by the way, you can email, that's our website, focus3.com. You can email me directly, tim@focus3.com. That's another way you can reach me. But I would love to hear from you. If you've got questions from today's webinar or just comments or thoughts, your feedback, your input is valued. Be aware of this also. We're going to be releasing a new R Factor, the complete R Factor online training course is coming soon. We're in the final stages of fixing it all up and getting it ready. We've filmed it already. We're just working on the technical side of it, and very excited about that. So keep apprised for that. But thank you all very much for being a part of it, and hope to hear from you. Thanks, everybody.